Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has appealed to the nation to follow SOPs for curbing the spread of coronavirus. Addressing the nation, the Prime Minister said Pakistan Army will help implement COVID-19 restrictions. Pakistan has reported 144 fatalities and over 5,800 cases overnight. India has again recorded the world's highest single-day spike in cases with more than 332,000 infections. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 144 million people. At least 10 asylum seekers are feared dead after their rubber boat capsized in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Libya. A rescue charity said dozens of bodies were spotted near a capsized vessel, which was carrying about 130 people. It said the fate of the approximately 30 people on board remains unknown. The U.S. says it will continue to monitor the situation on Russia's border with Ukraine after Moscow's troops withdrawal announcement. In a statement, the State Department spokesperson Ned Price said no pullout has been made yet. However, Russian state media says Moscow has begun pulling out troops that took part in military exercises in Crimea. The U.S. Senate has passed a bill with overwhelming majority to combat the rise of hate crimes against Asians. The bill, passed by 94-1, will be presented in the House of Representatives, where Democrats hold a clear majority. The U.S. has seen a surge in racially motivated crimes against Asian Americans since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has appealed to the nation to follow SOPs for curbing the spread of the coronavirus. Addressing to the nation, the Prime Minister warned that Pakistan may soon be facing a similar solution to India if the current trend continues. He said Pakistan Army will help implement COVID-19 restrictions. Pakistan has reported another 144 deaths from coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the countrywide death tally is now approaching 17,000. It says more than 5,800 people tested positive for the virus overnight. India has again recorded the world's highest single-day spike in COVID-19 cases with more than 332,000 infections. The country has also registered its record 2,263 deaths in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 144 million people. More on the pandemic in this report. Adverse effects of vaccines are complicating the efforts to control the outbreaks. A World Health Organization advisory group has updated guidance on the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine to include the risk of rare but severe blood clots. But WHO said it still believes that the benefits of the vaccine outweighed the risks. Meanwhile, the situation in India continues to get worse. 13 coronavirus patients who were in the ICU have died in a fire at a hospital in Maharashtra's Virar near Mumbai. Mass cremations have begun in New Delhi as the city faces a deluge of COVID-19 deaths. Volunteers have stepped up to help with funeral ceremonies of COVID-19 patients, whose bodies have been refused by the families for their last rites.
जब families body accept नहीं करते.
When the families do not accept the bodies of COVID-19 patients, the hospitals hand over the bodies to us after completing a small police formality. When the bodies come to us, we inquire about his religion, and if the patient is a Hindu, we perform the funeral as per Hindu customs, and if the patient is a Muslim, we do the funeral accordingly.
Canada has also banned all flights from India and other regional countries for 30 days due to the spiking cases. This comes as a variant contributing to India's deadly surge was detected in Belgium, while the UK reported 55 more such cases. Meanwhile, the European Commission has asked the states to back legal action against AstraZeneca over an alleged breach of its contractual supply obligations. The German parliament's upper house has approved the act to give the government emergency powers during the pandemic.
Das vierte Bevölkerungsschutzgesetz ist ein wichtiges.
The Fourth People's Protection Act is an important instrument and is not a challenge to the federal system and the way it works. It sets a unified parameter. It is a tool to deal with the current phase of the pandemic and has a time limit on it that expires on June 30. It is a compromise that can make a difference to our current situation, as the Act's name even suggests. It is an emergency brake.
South Korea has conditionally allowed the public to use 2 self-test kits for the first time, as a renewed surge has kindled calls to step up testing. A man in Australia has tested positive after finishing his hotel quarantine, raising concerns about community transmission. At least 100 asylum seekers are feared dead after their rubber boat capsized in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Libya. A rescue charity said dozens of bodies were spotted near the capsized vessel, which was carrying about 130 people. The French NGO Ocean Viking said the fate of the approximately 30 people remains unknown. Meanwhile, in a tweet, International Organization for Migration expressed sadness over the tragedy. The global agency renewed the call on the United States to redeploy search and rescue vessels in the Mediterranean Sea. The U.S. says it will continue to monitor the situation on Russia's border with Ukraine after Moscow's troops withdrawal announcement. In a statement, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said no pullout has been made yet. However, Russia's state media says Moscow has begun pulling out troops that took part in military exercises in Crimea. Earlier, the Russian defense minister ordered troops to return to their bases after the completion of the drills. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he is ready to host Ukrainian president in Moscow for talks over bilateral issues. But he said if the Donbass is on agenda, Volodymyr Zelensky must first meet with the leaders of the Donetsk People's Republic in eastern Ukraine. The U.S. Senate has passed a hate crimes bill to combat violence against Asian Americans in the wake of the pandemic. Activists say former President Donald Trump's comments blaming China for COVID-19 fed anti-Asian sentiment. The bill passed 94-1 with Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley as the only no vote. The measure designates a Justice Department employee to expedite a review of hate crimes. It also provides guidance for local law enforcement agencies to combat discriminatory language in describing the pandemic. Senate's Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the U.S. will do everything to eliminate racially motivated violence.
By passing this bill, we'll send a message to the country that should be all too obvious by now. Hate crimes will not be tolerated, and federal law enforcement will do everything in its power to detect, deter, and if necessary, prosecute crimes to the full extent of the law.
The bill is next expected to clear majority Democrat House of Representatives before heading to the president for the final signature. Now moving on, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has reached Istanbul for a 2-day official meeting. He will be meeting his Turkish counterpart and Afghan counterpart as well today to discuss the Afghan peace process. The Foreign Office said Qureshi was invited by his Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu. The two foreign ministers will hold talks on bilateral relations and regional security situations. The visit marks the preparations for the high-level Strategic Cooperation Council to be held in Turkey later this year. The U.S. Central Command has expressed concern over Kabul's ability to hold ground after foreign forces pull out. General Kenneth McKenzie, head of CENTCOM, was speaking during a hearing of Senate Armed Service Committee. General McKenzie said the Afghan military could collapse without continued American support. He said the U.S. will look for a remote way to help the Afghan forces without having U.S. personnel in the country. Speaking with reporters later, McKinsey noted that the pace of Taliban attacks against Afghan forces is as high as the past 2 decades. He termed the Biden administration's deliberate and methodological withdrawal decision as heartening. In Iraq, at least 3 Katyusha rockets landed in the perimeter of Baghdad International Airport near the U.S. military base. In a statement, the Iraqi military said there are no immediate reports of casualties or damages. The military said it also defused more unfired rockets found from the house used to launch the attack. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Last week, 2 Iraqi soldiers were wounded in a similar attack on an Iraqi military base in the northern region. The UN's nuclear watchdog says Iran has halved the number of centrifuges enriching uranium at one of its nuclear plants. International Atomic Energy Agency reported that Iran changed the mode by which it was enriching up to 60% of uranium. In a report, the global atomic body said Iran is now using 1 cascade of IR-6 centrifuges. However, the International Atomic Energy Agency report did not say why Iran had made the change. This comes a day after the IAEA's another report on Iran's installment of more advanced centrifuges. Iran announced to enrich uranium up to 60% in response to an Israeli attack on Natanz last week. The Arab coalition says it destroyed several Houthi drones targeting southern Saudi Arabian cities. The coalition said the rebels attempted to target the Jazan and Hamas Mushahid cities in the latest strikes. However, Houthis claim that they have attacked Saudi Arabia's King Khalid air base in Hamas Mushahid. The Yemeni rebels also claim to have attacked an Aramco oil facility in Jazan city. A Houthi spokesperson said the drones hit the intended targets accurately. The Houthis have stepped up cross-border aerial attacks on Saudi Arabia and a ground offensive in Yemen's Marib region. At least 100 Palestinians have been injured during clashes with police in eastern Jerusalem. The Palestinian Red Crescent says 21 civilians needed hospital treatment. Palestinian media said Israeli police fired stun grenades and sprayed foul-smelling skunk water to disperse the protesters. It said the Palestinians were holding counter-protests to a large anti-Palestine rally in the Old City. Hundreds of right-wing activists took to the streets against Arabs near Damascus Gate. This follows a week of increased violent assaults against Palestinian citizens in the area. Meanwhile, UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace, Tor Wensland, says successful Palestinian elections are a crucial step towards unity. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Amnesty International has urged Southeast Asian nations to investigate Myanmar's junta leader for crimes against humanity. Coup leader General Min Aung Hlaing is likely to attend the summit in Indonesia on Saturday. In a report, Amnesty said the situation in Myanmar is not an internal matter, but a major humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, a group of non-governmental organizations has urged ASEAN to include ousted lawmakers in Saturday's summit. In a letter, they said inviting the junta chief gives legitimacy to the military's ongoing genocidal slaughter against its civilians. Meanwhile, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has said he hoped the summit would pave the way for a soft landing. Activists say 739 people have been killed by security forces since the coup, and 3,300 are in detention. Japan is set to hold military drills with the U.S. and France next month in the country's southwest. The Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force says the drills will be the first large-scale exercise involving troops from all 3 countries. In a statement, it said the drills will take place from the 11th of May to the 17th of May in the Kyushu region. Defense Minister Nobu Kishi told reporters that France shares the vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. He said Tokyo wants better cooperation to improve the skills of Japan's forces in defending remote territories. In the U.S. state of North Carolina, protests continue for the second day after the fatal shooting of a black man in his car by local police. The shooting came the day after a jury found Derek Chauvin guilty of murdering George Floyd. North Carolina Police Department says they have opened an investigation into the killing of Andrew Brown Jr. The event unfolded on the 21st of April when authorities served Brown with a search warrant, which led to his killing. Law enforcement officials did not say if Brown was armed at the time or whether he was considered a threat to the officers. The African American community says they fear for their safety.
And I've got my neighbor across the street killed, and my baby comes running in my room with fear in his face. Like, how do I keep him safe if the people that are supposed to serve and protect us and keep us safe are the ones taking them out?
The U.S. military is sending airborne assets to aid Indonesia's search for a missing submarine with 53 crew. Rescue teams from several countries are working to find the submarine that is lost in the Bali Sea. 2 Australian Navy ships are also heading for the search area, including a frigate with special sonar capabilities. The KRI Nanggala 402 lost contact with the Navy during a torpedo drill in the Bali Strait on Wednesday. Authorities have warned that oxygen in the submarine will run out within 24 hours. Meanwhile, the Indonesian Navy said its ships have found an unidentified object at a depth of 50 to 100 meters. The Navy said they are waiting for a ship with underwater detection facilities to arrive before they could investigate it further. NASA's Ingenuity helicopter has undertaken its second flight on Mars. The robot aircraft earlier made history when it rose just over 10 feet onto the Martian atmosphere for nearly 40 seconds. NASA says Ingenuity rose around 6 feet higher and stayed aloft for nearly 52 seconds. It also performed a sideways tilt. Officials say the flight of the 1.8-kilogram rotorcraft will help pave the way for a new mode of aerial exploration. The debut flight of Ingenuity was documented in a full-color video by cameras aboard the science rover vehicle Perseverance. NASA likened the achievement to the Wright brothers' first controlled flight near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in December 1903. In Brazil, life is finally returning to São Paulo's heavily polluted Pinheiros River after removal of the trash. Experts say the arrival of fish and birds in one of the tributaries of the river has benefited hundreds of thousands of households. More in this report. Pinheiros River was considered a lost cause, but recent sightings of fish, ducks, and herons show wildlife could return to the river that runs through the heart of the sprawling South American city. The São Paulo governor says 30,000 tons of surface garbage has already been removed from the river, and 20 boats are working daily to clean the Pinheiros.
Esse é o maior projeto ambiental do país.
This is the largest environmental project in the country in terms of investment. A $727,000 and $344 million investment, $454,000 and $590 million in public investment, and $272.754 million in private investment. To rescue a river that for 70 years has become a bad example for Sao Paulo, a polluted and stinking river.
With visible improvements, there are fresh hopes that residents of South America's largest city will make every effort to keep the river clean as they return to its banks. According to experts, the Corrigo do Espatario tributary has benefited at least 200,000 households living along the river's banks.
Foram feitas 200.
More than 200,000 calls were made out of the 500,000 house calls they want to make. This is very important. In this way, the main river can be cleaned by its tributaries, which provides better quality water to dilute any dirty water.
Experts believe the efforts could achieve some success within the stipulated time frame, but improved water oxygenation and a reduction in the Pinheiros foul odor would require a long-term effort. In Thailand, a Buddhist temple has broken the Guinness World Record for the largest candle display by lighting up over 300,000 candles. Details in this report. In a beautiful spectacle, the monks of the Vatpara Dhamayaka temple chanted around a golden shrine as a 78-acre compound was lit. A total of 330,000 candles made up the shape of a Buddhist monk, meditation within a huge design of the earth. It is estimated that around 300,000 monks and devotees attended the ceremony virtually. Being themed as Cleanse the Mind, Cleanse the World, the event was timed to coincide with Earth Day. Temple's authorities say the purpose was to remind people to cleanse their minds before they start cleaning the world. European markets have edged lower as global stocks search for direction to end the week. Investors are monitoring a slew of economic data, corporate earnings, and the surging third wave of COVID-19. Frankfurt's DAX, London's FTSE, and the Pan-European Stock 600 have shed marginally. The CAC 40 in Paris and Italy's FTSE MIB have also slipped fractionally. Earlier, all Asian stocks traded mixed. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.